One of the really interesting things about the story of the Old Testament is that it focuses around the land, the promised land, the land where God's people will dwell in happiness and joy. But of course, in order to be in the land, they have to arrive there in the first place, and then you have stories about how they have to leave the land. So we have the story of the Exodus, and the story of the Exodus is really important as the people left the place where they were in slavery and were effectively refugees until they found a place to live, until they came home. And the story of the Exodus, I think, is a really important one as we reflect on the theme of refugees, because we often think about home being the place where you were to start with. The story of the Exodus is very important because it tells us that God's people actually found home in a new place, in a new land. And then as we go a few hundred years forwards in history, we have another element of the land, which is the element of the exile. When the Babylonians came and took God's people off into exile, then actually they had to leave their home. They had to leave the place where their heart was and go somewhere else. And then they spent the next 60 years or so yearning to return. So you have two elements which I think are really important, which is that theme of home, land, which is where you belong. And sometimes you travel to it. Sometimes you have to travel away from it and yearn to come back to it. But running all the way through is this theme of home and belonging, which is a really important one. So as we think about the theme of refugees, I think one of the really interesting things to think about is that question of home. Where is home? And how do we discover our own home and other people's home in the land where we live?